Oh, oh,
Yes,
oh.
you are now listening to the sounds of Sports Reports is Ordered. Do me a favor though. Do not watch Benzino on Tubi. Thank me later. You know what I'm saying? Random leftover from the hot box. But hey, Sports Reports is Ordered is here. And tonight, we're going to talk about the nasty AFC West. Is it the same old Westside story?
Ooh, look at the grades.
And to help me navigate through this, I have with me the one and only, born in Texas, raised in VA, representing New Jerusalem. He has one request. Do not bring feelings to a fact fight.
Don't do it.
He is Mr. Logic. And I am your unorthodox statistician. Here to remind you that no matter what a stripper tells you, there is no sex in the champagne room. No sex. I am 2'5", the southpaw going left so much you thought I was southpaw. You know what I'm saying? Maybe every now and again if Teofimo Lopez threw a left hand. But never mind, that's a whole nother conversation. Let's get this thing started. Sports Reports is Ordered. Like, review, subscribe. Do all the free things. Do all the good things. Mr. Logical.
Yeah.
So, normally, we usually start this thing off with Get It Off My Chest. I'm going to call it a Get Off My Chest anyway. But, you know, we got two quarterbacks that broke the bank, you know, this weekend. You know, one up in Green Bay by the name of Jordan Love, and the other one down in South Beach by the name of Tua Tagovailoa. Not turned the ball over. I'll leave that for the regular season. You know, so I was sitting around, right? And for the last couple of months, I've been arguing with various people on whether Tua deserves to be paid or not. And deserve is a very funny word. You know, I will say that it's Tua's turn. And, you know, that if it were up to me, if I was the GM, I would have probably done some more negotiating. Like, I know that you've been a proponent of give him the Daniel Jones deal. You know, said I was going to give him a little bit more than that, but I wasn't going to give him what he got.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? So what was your first reaction when you saw Tua's contract?
Well, it was kind of hard to really react to like anything sports related because I was out in Cancun. You know what I'm saying, swim with whale sharks, just not really focused on sports. I was thinking about it. Like the TV in my room didn't connect to my phone, which is like I don't need to be in here anyway. But I was getting messages from you, and I was just reading through it. I I don't understand. First of all, just the overall salary cap, how it's used, how it's applied to quarterbacks. Regardless, it seems like in spite of performance, they are paid. It's like if you worked at any other job and it was 32 employees and you're consistently ranked between 12 and 17, then your expectation to get paid among the top 11, it doesn't make any sense. And I get in the NFL, it doesn't always work like that. So I'm not going to harp on, well, Mahomes is winning Super Bowls. You should get paid more. I get that. But the guys who are getting paid, it's not even like close. It's not like they aren't the reason that your team's going to get over the hump. You're just hoping that they're like losing them is worse because you don't want to have to bring somebody else new in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why these contracts feel like you're paying too much for hope. You're paying like guarantee, like this person is the guy. And I get it's like their turn. But when it's the running back's turn, it doesn't happen. When it's the wide receiver's turn, recently it's skyrocketed. But I heard a lot of chatter saying that probably will shift back. So I don't understand why they gave him that much money, considering that you probably could get not you don't get the same performance of another guy, but I think you had his rights for like a couple more years. Franchise him, make him play it out. Either way, he can't go anywhere else because just as much as you are inundated and connected to him because you drafted him, he's connected to you the same way. another team isn't going to look at him the same way. If Minnesota needed a quarterback this next offseason, hypothetically, they're not going to look at Tua the same way Miami did because Miami drafted him. They'd rather say, I'd rather get my own guy and develop him versus bringing in somebody else's guy for 50 plus million. So I just felt like they gave up these contracts when they really were in a better leverage position
Well, you know,
than the player.
it's because people have these conversations a lot, and they say things like, "Well, who they going to get that's better?" And a lot of times, what I'm saying, it's just one of those things where like you don't always have to get a better quarterback. What up, Q? You don't
Appreciate it, Q.
always have to give. You don't always have to get a better quarterback. So, like for example, right, looking back at Denver in 2015. I'm sure they would have liked a better quarterback than what Peyton Manning was giving them. Now granted, it all worked out. They won the Super Bowl. Von Miller and the defense took over, but they could have done a little bit better than that version of Peyton Manning. When you look at the Rams, did they really, really have to go get Matthew Stafford? I don't think so. You know what I
No,
mean? They had already made a Super Bowl run and a Super Bowl with Jared Goff.
correct.
Just play better. You lost 13-3.
Yeah, and you would have been up probably 10. You probably would have been up if McCourty doesn't make that play in the back of the end zone.
Right.
And
You know,
Tom Brady wasn't really moving the ball, so you win that Super Bowl if McCourty is a half second later.
and that's the thing, so like as far as Tua goes, I don't know if Miami can do better, but I know they could get somebody with a better arm if they're gonna be on the road in the playoffs in the cold weather. I
Well,
know that the money that they gave Tua could go to upgrading some of that defense. You know what I mean? And I think that's the thought is that you get stuck on the topic of quarterback and everybody is just rushing to get the next quarterback. So like looking at Jordan Love, right? You know what I'm saying? Like looking at Jordan Love, you know what I mean? Like I understand a little bit more. I mean, Jordan Love was drafted to be the franchise quarterback. He sat on the bench for 3 or 4 years behind Aaron Rodgers. So, and he came out last year, didn't throw an interception from like the week before Thanksgiving all the way to the 49er game. So you know what I mean? So in some ways, you could argue Jordan Love has done some things Tua hasn't even done yet. You know what I mean? I don't want to go there though, because it was just
appreciate it, Mr. Lewis. Yeah, I'm
what I'm
listening.
saying? It was just 1 year. You know what I mean? So like I don't want to make this big grand statement of Jordan Love has arrived and all of a sudden like Jordan Love is this top 5 quarterback or whatever the case may be. So do you feel or let me back up. Out of the two contracts, do you feel one is more egregious than the other?
I don't. So egregious is a tough word. I would say Jordan Love is premature because the first half of the season last year, he didn't look like a guy that was going to get paid $50 million in July of next year. Like when you're watching Green Bay in their first 8 games, you weren't thinking like, yo, in July, these two veterans are going to be having a conversation about how this guy's getting paid over $50 million a year. So to have like, you know what I mean, a hot song and then think that you're going to just be one of the greatest ever, it's just like it's it's just too premature. With Tua, I felt like they didn't want to give him his contract because I believe they could have extended him last year and they want him to prove it. And then he proved it by not winning on the road in Buffalo, which could have secured their division.
Well, that one was at home.
Oh, that one was at home. So
Yeah. Yeah.
not winning at home to win the division. And then granted, going on the road to Kansas City and you were playing in Santa Claus backyard, I get it. It was very, very cold. But what you're left with is can this guy get us over the hump? And he had 2 tests at the end of last season. So the last time you heard me highlight me, I saw exactly. I was literally thinking that, but I was like, I think we said that before. So I was like, I'll let it slide. But the thing that you're worried about with him is can he get us over the hump?
Hmm.
In his last two tests, he hadn't done it. The playoff game against Buffalo, the previous Hunter in the playoffs, he didn't play because he was injured. So it's just, I think you have more questions, and they had those questions, and that's why they didn't extend them last year. You still have those same questions. Like it wasn't answered. Yeah, he
Right.
led the league in passer, like passer rating, passing yards, and things of that nature. But that's because you're throwing it to a track team.
And that's why, like, I kind of agree with Q's point, as far as, Jordan Love. I mean, Green Bay, okay, how can I word this? So I don't want to say they were forced into a corner, but to some degree they were, from the standpoint of, you drafted Jordan Love in the first round, pissed off Aaron Rodgers, who was out here winning MVPs and everything. You had him going nuts, and we knew the marriage was going to end at some point.
He
You
won
know,
back to back MVPs after he drafted. He
right?
messed. He Aaron Jordan Love should thank Aaron Rodgers those 2 years that he won MVP, because that basically let him sit and get closer to this date without expending any energy, and then
Mhm.
allow him to be like I said, I was talking about it at work. The best position to be is the backup quarterback. They allowed the relationship with Aaron to go public, and it went sideways. And Jordan just kept his head down. He answered all the questions. He did all the right things. They're a young team, and I get it. This paying him this money now, you don't have the you're a young team exception anymore, because you might have been able to get him to play this year with this young team. Maybe you can make a move at the trade deadline. Maybe you can bolster that team at some point, and and make a real run at the NFC North. But now you put all this money on his lap, and now the expectations are going to just rise. So I think that's the problem.
Yeah, and see, like, there's already people out here, on TV saying that he's a top five quarterback. And to be fair, I mean, he had a lead in San Francisco during the playoffs. Obviously, he threw the picks that cost him the game. That happens, young quarterback, what I'm saying? But like with Tua, I look at it from the standpoint of, hey, we got our weapons. You know what I mean? We don't have to add on as far as Tua's part. Obviously, they need some defensive help, but we got Jalen Waddle, we got Tyreek Hill, we got Mostert, we got A Chain, so on and so forth. You are that last puzzle piece that should get us over the top. That's the way you're looking at it if you're Miami. But you haven't done anything to prove it, but I know you're my guy. So, like you said about Trevor Lawrence, they made the commitment of, we proposed to you, we promised you, we led you on, so now I got to follow through. Whereas
Yeah.
with Green Bay, it's more like, hey, we lost Aaron over you, dog. Like even though Aaron Rodgers was still on the team and hadn't been moved yet, we lost Aaron over you. Who might be the best quarterback in our franchise's history. We got Matt LaFleur here, who is the quarterback whisperer. We saw what you did to close out last season when people had us dead in the water. So you know what? I've seen enough. You've been in our system, even though you weren't playing. You were here for 4 years. We've been watching you. I'm sure LaFleur had some input on whether, hey,
You
this is
sound like
my guy.
the publicist. You
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 know,
sound like the publicist for the GM.
but no, but I mean, it's true though. Like, yes, it is premature from the standpoint of, he had 1 year under center for a full season, and we saw what happened. But Green Bay committed to Jordan Love a long time ago. So you know what I mean. So like from that standpoint, you let
Yeah,
Jordan
but
Love walk. It
it's
goes back to it. If you let Jordan Love walk,
but that's the
what are you
thing.
doing?
I don't think these either one of these teams were in that kind of position. I believe most. I think Tua, for instance, the Arizona deal with Kyler Murray, when they made his deal, people were saying you didn't have to do that because you essentially owned his rights for like his first 6 seasons between the contract and potential 2 franchise tags. So when they gave him his big extension, when he cleared everything off Instagram, it was like you had all the leverage as teams. And it seems like teams are willing to just piss off all defensive linemen and linebackers and corners and wide receivers and running backs and let them go, and to keep the quarterback. And it draws me to this statement that Chris Broussard was talking about Jerry Jones in Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones said it himself. He was like, I basically, I'm paraphrasing. I whip up the frenzy around the Cowboys. It's good for us. It's good to be relevant. I do it on purpose, essentially. Like, so having a starting quarterback that your fans can somewhat believe in, because I'm pretty sure Miami fans don't feel the same way as us being from the outside is evaluating it. So they're looking at it like, we got our guy, we're paying him, we're gonna do this and this and this and this.
Hmm.
So when these guys get paid, they don't look at it the same way as someone who's just analyzing it. I think they're looking like, oh, we got our guy,
Well,
because you don't want to be without your guy, because you're gonna see we're gonna talk about Denver and the Raiders after this segment, and that whole conversation is gonna stem around like they don't have a real guy locked in, but that
yeah.
doesn't mean you have to overpay the guy you have because Denver doesn't have a good
Well, we
quarterback situation.
also we also get into this habit of thinking that the quarterbacks are playing one on one against each other. So you know what I mean? It's like, oh, we're playing against the Buffalo Bills. They have Josh Allen versus Tua, not realizing that it don't matter what Tua does if Jalen Ramsey doesn't do his job. And when you look at these situations, this is where these teams get stuck in these processes. Like you look at somebody like say Seattle, right? They got Geno Smith. They paid him a couple of seasons ago. They bring in Sam Howell, and people are saying to themselves, is Geno's job in trouble? You know what I mean? And it's based off of what? Like Sam Howell threw 21 interceptions last season. You
Because the
know?
best position to be is the backup quarterback. Like I said, it's like being a prince. You don't have the responsibilities of a king. You just get to walk around all day telling everybody one day I'll be king. And that's it. And I think that's the fans are enamored with the backup quarterback, and they're also enamored with their guy because, and I think Miami might be like, oh, you know what? This is us against the world. Everyone's counting us out. Well, you haven't done anything. It's like you haven't had a playoff win in 24 years. I was 16.
Yeah, everybody's clowning, myself included,
I
clowning
got gray hair
Dallas for
now.
not winning since, 90, what is it, 96? And the 49ers haven't won since the year before that. And you ain't even got a playoff win. And somehow you escape criticism, yet you're playing victim. Like,
So
come on. Come on. But speaking of these quarterbacks, let's talk about this quarterback room that you love so much. Jarrett Stidham, Zach Wilson, Bo Nix. Are the Broncos tanking for the number one pick in the draft?
uh, the thing I feel, listen, like I said, I am no fan of Sean Payton. I think he's Mike McCarthy in lipstick. Like everyone thinks it's so pretty, but if you look at their numbers, I think it might be less now because Mike McCarthy's actually going out there winning games, 36 games in the last 3 years. But their records are pretty similar at the beginning of last year. Obviously, didn't finish that way with them being terrible. Uh, I think I think they have a good philosophy defensively. I know they gave up that 70 burger to Miami, but it might have been after like 28, 35 points. Is like, how hard am I really running to chase A Chain? Like, I'm not catching them. It's a wrap. All reports in training camp, either the guy looks great or the guy looks terrible. But realistically, it's just they look how they look because they're playing against air. They have no fear of getting sacked. The guy rushing them is going to hit them. They're not allowed to hit them. And if somebody does come in there and hit them, they're probably going to get cut before you get in trouble for throwing a bad pass. So you hit the guy in the red jersey, you're going to get cut. So everybody looks good when you throw the ball against air. And even the corners don't challenge wide receivers because do you really want to be the corner that hurts Devontae Adams if you're on the Raiders and you hurt Devontae Adams in a drill? No, you don't. Especially if you're a second or third string corner. Yeah, you want to make a play and be in it, but these guys pull back. That's why a lot of injuries happen in preseason because they pull back. But Sean Payton was given a lot of money to come in and fix the Denver Broncos woes, and it didn't work. They blamed everything on Russell Wilson, even though he was like top 7 in passer rating and touchdown to interception ratio. He just didn't do the spectacular. He wanted to hit the bomb. Peyton wanted to hit the check down. He's like, listen, man, Cortland's down there somewhere. I'm letting this thing go. And Sean's cussing him on the sideline, talking about we might have to wristband it and all this. He just was real condescending to him in public because Russell isn't confrontational. He probably should have sent Sierra in the office. I mean, she's from Atlanta. She probably would have cussed him out. But you should have done something. But I mean, if you think about it, John Elway is basically living the same legacy as Rob Pelinka.
Mm, tell me
A,
more.
a legend late in his career, still with some talent, was peeping out a new team for whatever reason, and just walks into your building and says, "Hire me." And you're like, "Yes." And then that guy goes out and gets you a couple of championship runs, wins you a championship, and then you butcher every move since that. And you're just riding off of that, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And then when they paid Sean Payton the money they paid him, it's like the money they're paying him, they should not be drafting anywhere near 10 ever for the money I'm giving you as a head coach. Because if I'm giving that much money personally as a head coach, how much money am I putting into the facility? How much money am I putting into your assistant coaches? Because if I'm giving you 20 million as a head coach, that means I have to invest in everything else around you so that the 20 million doesn't go to waste. So how many hot tubs did they buy? Did they revamp their facility? Like they're spending a lot of money for a guy who is a average coach, mediocre at best. So,
Well, yeah. So
and then that quarterback room has to be the worst in the league. I can't, off the top of my head, the previews we've done so far, I can't think of one in the worst situation.
I gotta think of I gotta figure out who Minnesota's third string is because you got JJ McCarthy,
JJ
Sam Darnold.
McCarthy only lost one college football game.
I know, I know.
He beat his rivals. He played in the college football playoff 2 years in a row. So for all intents and purposes, he's good. He didn't have to transfer schools. He was a state champion high school quarterback. So he's won at every level so far. So you have the position to be optimistic. Bo Nix played a lot of years in college and doesn't really have any hardware.
Ooh, Nick Mullins, huh?
Well, Nick Mullins is your
Ooh.
standard backup quarterback. He's a guy that, if he had to play two games, you could go 1-1, 0-2, or 2-0, and he just has like two games where he throws for like 6 or 7 touchdowns.
So like basically, I don't know. JJ McCarthy got an arm now. Say he didn't throw it much, but he got an arm. But like I don't know. So when I look at Denver's roster, right? They traded Jerry Judy. One of the best route running receivers in the league. Even though it was done once Steve Smith called him out, I guess. But they still
Yeah.
have Cortland Sutton, who I like a lot. Even though I don't like Bo Nix, I do like the fact that they drafted his number one target at Oregon last year, Troy Franklin, 17 yards per reception. So at least there's a sense of comfortability if he plays, if Bo Nix starts. There's a comfortability there. There's somebody continuity wise that he has a rapport with. So I always like that as a rookie. Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, even though they're not quite the same thing, but you get the point.
Yeah.
So they got Javonte Williams, who came back from an injury last year, ACL,
last year.
LCL. So we'll see how that goes year two coming back from that injury. They did pick up Audric Estime from Notre Dame, who was a leading running back in the nation last year, top 10 or so. So they filled that. They got Jaleel McLaughlin, who came in last year, made some plays, didn't get a lot of burn, but he made plays when he was on the field. Tim Patrick. Oh, that guy, man. I hope he plays this season. Achilles in 2022, ACL last year. They said he's at practice.
Sounds like the Clay Thompson injury, and Clay was never the same after
Right.
that.
And he's at practice, you know what I mean? So that's a positive sign. At least I like to hear that. So, we'll see how that goes. But when I look at Denver, they're just
Are they as bad off as New England and Carolina looking for? Like, who are you more optimistic about, New England, Carolina, or Denver?
Honestly, I would say, okay. So out of those three teams, the New England defense is the best unit out of those three teams. If we're looking at this from quarterback future, that like the league runs on offense nowadays and all that kind of stuff like that, Denver might not be that bad off. It just takes for Bo Nix to be better than I think he's going to be.
But does that help with the coach that hasn't been proven to be able to get Drew Brees was Drew
Well,
Brees.
well, New England has a first-time coach whose claim to fame is he came up under Belichick. So are you basically getting Belichick negative 1.0? And then you got Carolina with a first-time head coach who is a first-time, or he's a quarterback whisperer apparently,
Yeah,
in Canales.
but Denver has a coach that thinks he's a god
They do have
among
that.
yeah, like so Russell Wilson went to 2 Super Bowls. Ironically, he's never gotten an MVP vote. It was always weird. He was
Yeah, it's
always
always weird.
statistically in that space with the other MVPs. Every one of his good years in Seattle. Duke had a good year last year, but I don't know if Sean Payton is the kind of coach that gets the best out of his team.
So what do you before you so what do you think the answer to that question is out of those three teams?
That's in the best position going forward.
Yeah. Final Jeopardy. Do 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 do
I
do
would
do.
say New England because Drake May is your prototypical size quarterback. And if Mayo recognizes that Bill didn't bring in the right kind of offensive mind and skill players in his tenure, especially the post the post Brady time, which is the most recent time, you can clearly see that Bill did not go outside of his Patriot family tree to bring in a guy that was innovative or even a guy that just spoke a different kind of offensive language.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that they're going to be better. I just feel that if he's in a position, Jeremy being like, you know what, if it doesn't work, whatever the offensive coordinator have this year, you go get one of these LaFleur, McVay, Shanahan, like one of these guys that had that different kind of coaching cachet, and then maybe you pair him with Drake May, you let it go.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing with Nick's Q, as you bring your point, I don't know if Nick's is going to get this the is he's going to have the leeway to learn because the pressure that Peyton's going to be under because of his check. His check and his expectations don't match his personnel.
Right.
So with that person, so that's going to lead you to doing things like pulling them. I'm gonna go with Zach next week. I'm gonna go with Jerry. Like I think he's in a position to potentially not just let Bo Nix be Bo Nix. I don't know how he goes to the podium because I haven't heard him talk with a soft tongue about any of his players. Hell, he allowed a bounty gate to pop off in New Orleans. So like you can kind of tell that I don't know if he really cares about players more as he cares about himself and winning.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you cared about players, the last thing you would want was to justify, illegal hits to injure another player for like $200 to $300 cash payments. They can just roll dice for that money in the locker room if you want to let them. If you want to let them get a little extra change in the room and that adrenaline hit of winning money, but he allowed that to happen. So it's like I don't know how I don't know if his temperament matches the sick of circumstance that he's in.
Mm-hmm. And then earlier you brought up how they gave up 70 to Miami. They also held Kansas City to 9. So they brought in
Yeah,
Brandon Jones. They brought in Brandon Jones from Miami. To play safety. Obviously they have Surtain still over there. I was wondering if he's going to hit the trade deadline at some point, but we'll see. They picked up Cody Barton from the Commanders, who has started 29 games, and in the 2 years that he's been a real full-time starter, 136 and 121 tackles. So not too shabby. So
yeah, but
maybe so
Sean
maybe
Payton
Denver's not as bad as we think.
he never really rested his head on the defense though. He cut his teeth or whatever as they said the old adage with the offense. But his
And
offense was based off of explosive players and a very smart veteran quarterback. Drew Brees was a veteran quarterback with a chip on his shoulder, ironically, no pun intended, with the injured shoulder coming back from that. So, and then you had New Orleans, a city that was like clamoring for a hero, and he gave him that. This situation in Denver is not the same thing. And I just don't feel like that's going to be the place.
yeah.
That yeah, and I don't think Denver is going to be at a place where he cultivates growth with this quarterback room. Because
Mhm.
especially with Zach Wilson, he has a few years of Zach film that he's going to say to him, "Don't do this with your feet when you throw this pass." And the first game he goes out there and he doesn't set his feet on a little pass to the flat and it sails over his head and it's they got a punt on 3rd and 8. He's gonna cuss him out on the sideline.
He better not start Zach Wilson. I think Zach Morris might be a better quarterback at this point.
I was saying you got AC Slater out there, but listen, that's the thing. I don't know what they're willing to do in Denver. Think about this. They had a guy that threw over 20 touchdowns last year, less than 10 interceptions, and they shipped him off to another team, and they're paying that guy $38 million to play for another AFC team. So, like, what's the mindset of this team?
Right. Yeah.
So,
And that's where it is. They're obviously in rebuild mode. Or at least you would like to think so. But like you said, with Sean Payton's contract, how long can that rebuild last
which is
before you
weird. I
start
haven't
looking?
really heard it out loud. Like, I've only seen rumors of it. Like, different insiders said rumored to
I think
be
they
nearly
rumored like 20 million a year.
20 million a year. Like, I've never really saw it formally. I didn't look because everyone was saying rumor. Then he got hired, and no one ever talked about it again. But obviously, like to throw money around. Like I said, they're throwing $38 million to Pennsylvania.
Right. But Denver doesn't have, maybe Marvin Mims can be their game breaker. He was raw as a rookie last year. He could be the inside slot guy, old school Dante Hall kind of guy. But and that might work with Bo Nix, because the thing with Bo Nix for me is that he's one of those guys that kind of he's a gamer more than he is a quarterback. Like, he's one of those, he's not Johnny Manziel, but that's the type of player that I mean. He has that sizzle, the crazy decision making. But
That doesn't work in the
when he
NFL.
plays against good teams, a lot of times he just clams up. Now at Oregon, you had that offensive system where it was get the ball out of your hand, snap it, throw, snap it, throw, snap it. And if Torrey Franklin ain't open, maybe you could go get us 5 yards real quick. So having Troy Franklin will help him, I do believe, this season if he ends up being the starter. I'm just not convinced that he's going to be the starter. Now, we back to the training camp reports. We hear this all year, just like all off season. All I've heard about is how Drake May is, not ready. But then I see videos yesterday of him throwing absolute darts. You know what I mean? So I mean, both of them can't be true.
But
You,
think about this: if they throw 120 passes in practice, say that's the number, and the Twitter clip we get is 4. In theory, Schrodinger's cat. We don't know if the cat inside the box is dead or alive until you open the box. In theory, he could have thrown 116 bad passes and we wouldn't know because all we had are the 4 passes that they clipped together. Remember when Tua got Tyreek Hill?
yeah,
One clip came out of him underthrowing Tyreek Hill, and that's all people talked about all season. And then Tua went out, had a pretty good season. He kept getting injured. But we know Tua can't throw the ball that far. But
right.
these training camp videos are always deceiving. I saw one today of Spencer Rattler throwing a dart. Yeah, of course. We have no idea who the corner was covering Olave. We just know Olave caught a deep pass from Rattler. It could have been some dude that they just saw walk to the building with shoulder pads, and Olave beats him, and it's an easy throw because there's no defense on Spencer. So it's like, I think that what you have to gauge off of is like, how did this guy play against teams or in colleges that had a lot of NFL star power?
Well, he transferred to get the hell away from the SEC. But moving on, so how much can the Chargers change in 1 year? Because I know they got Jim Harbaugh now, so a lot of people. Now, I don't want to say they're getting hyped because I haven't heard much about them because nobody cares about the
I
Chargers.
think they're
But
like the low
people
key
do
darling.
believe, yeah, people do
They're
believe,
not
like,
they're not Houston hype, but they're getting that like
yeah,
they're Harbaugh hype. It's not
right,
necessarily Chargers, it's
right,
Harbaugh hype. Yeah.
right. So do you think that you and this Mac Jones thing? Do you think that the Chargers can be that much better in a year and say challenge for a wild card spot?
I think the Chargers are a pretty solid team. They're a lot like the West Coast Jets. They have all the pieces, but they need all the pieces there because they don't really have like a concrete, like, I don't say mantra, but just like with the Ravens. The Ravens are going to do this. They're going to run the ball hard, two or three tight ends, big running back. They're going to run it with Lamar. They're going to throw over top passes to whatever wide receiver or whatever that route is that's going to be the deep. They're going to do that, and they're going to insert players of the same kind of build and design in these spots. The Chargers, they need Bosa healthy, they need Mac healthy, they need Dermot, they need all these guys healthy because without them, it is such a drop off with their replacements that they can't overcome it. Like I said with the Jets lose a tackle or they lose a wide receiver, they automatically go from maybe a high B to like a high C caliber unit. I think the Chargers are in that same boat. What Harbaugh's probably going to do is slow it down. This is football. You guys are big, strong athletes. I just need you to put a hat on a hat, and we can go 4 yards in a cloud of dust. Little play action. You have a quarterback that can move. He has the arm, so you can still stretch the defense. If Richardson can, what's the boy name? The wide receiver draft
Quentin
from
Johnson.
Johnson. If he can catch the ball, I think they already moved him down like
I don't know.
four.
The reports, going back to those reports, right? What I saw in the reports was he can only catch the ball if he's looking at the quarterback.
I saw a video, and granted, this is like I'm not putting on his credence to it, but I saw a video of him and Marvin Harrison Jr. working out, and just the way Marvin Harrison Jr. was like reaching out football. They were working out together, same area. It wasn't like two different workouts. They were working out together. And Marvin Harrison Jr. was like catching the ball out in front with his hands, tucking it, moving it. Quentin Johnson was catching it like here. So like he's turning his body and he's getting his hands on the ball. But like Harrison was like here. Like he was like seeing the ball, getting it away.
Get there, Q.
Yeah. So it's like it looked in that video like, okay, I can see how one guy would be successful catching the ball, like catch it away from your body. The defender's there. You can't let it get to here. He can get his hands in. You got to get your hands up, body position, stuff like that. Because he's a big body. He's probably just as big as Marvin Harrison Jr. But just the way he was catching the ball, it looked like he would have trouble with what you would consider drops because guys gonna be able to knock it out of his hand. But I think Harbaugh. I think I don't know if he can go with that old school Kaepernick offense that they ran with the Alex Smith.
I'm glad you said that. Because you know who their offensive coordinator is, right?
Yeah, he brought all the people back.
Yeah, he brought Greg Roman. You know what I'm saying? Got the band back together. Who didn't work out in Baltimore. But the Chargers' philosophy is out with the injured, in with the injured. You know what I'm saying? So they got rid of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, who always seem to miss games. They just to bring in Hayden Hurst, who always missed games. J.K. Dobbins, who always missed games, Christian Fulton, who always misses games, but everything else is pretty much the same. They brought in Joe Alt, so, the offensive line should get a pick-me-up there with Rashawn Slater on the other side.
He looks like a 12-year veteran.
He does. He reminds
like when they picked him.
He's going to be the guy. I don't, like I said, we're still evaluating. I don't know what great offensive linemen are, but to some degree, like he's going to be that Joe Thomas kind of guy. I think.
I was literally thinking Joe Thomas. I mean, he literally got drafted in a log cabin wearing a quarter zip, Brooks Brothers shirt, khakis. His whole family looked like they just hunt deer and eat elk. It just was like, but that's the thing. That can be enough to get you wins against, you can beat Seattle doing that. You can beat teams that are going to beat themselves when you just have this smash mouth. But eventually you're going to have to make plays. And this is where Justin Herbert comes in. Like, listen, you're paying him over $250 million. So he's going to have to make plays.
Put up a shut up.
At this point. And that's the thing.
And that's the problem, right? They went out, like I said, Keenan Allen's gone. Mike Williams is gone. Not that they were really there anyway, but you got Lat McConkey that they drafted now out of Georgia, so everybody's in love with him. You brought up Quentin Johnston. They went and got DJ Shark. They do have Josh Palmer, who I like a lot. So this is one of those things where when I look at the Chargers and the Raiders, when I was trying to pick my order in this division, I had to ask myself, do I want the quarterback with the lack of receivers, or do I want the receivers that can make a lackluster quarterback look good? So, from that standpoint, do I want Devontae Adams and Brock Bowers, even though I'm stuck with Minshew and potentially Aiden O'Connell, or do I want Justin Herbert and trust that he can make these receivers look a little bit better than they may really be?
Like we said, we talk about teams that signed their guy. Harbaugh obviously didn't sign Justin Herbert; he just got there.
Right.
The bet, Herbert did get bailed out with this narrative of bad coaching when Brandon Staley kept going for it on fourth down, because the quarterback still has to convert those. No matter if you go for it or not, like 4th and 2 at midfield, yeah, we can all think it's dumb.
You remember the game against Minnesota last season
when they went for like 4th and 2 on the 20?
4th and 2 at the 25 with like 5 seconds or like 50 seconds left, and they won the game because Kirk Cousins couldn't get the crowd to shut up.
Yeah. So, yeah, stuff like that. Or the game against Cleveland where they went for it and the defense bailed them out by not allowing Cleveland to get back in the scoring
The game
position
against the Raiders with the playoffs on the line.
But once again, Herbert still has to make those plays because we all knew Staley was going for it on fourth down all the time, every game. We knew that was going to happen. So someone still has to make the play because Mahomes in the Super Bowl converted a couple of fourth downs in fourth quarter and overtime. And all we remember is Joey Bosa or Nick Bosa not being there where he should have been there, and Mahomes converted. So Justin Herbert still has to convert those. It did put him in a bad predicament, but your opportunity at 6'5" to get 6 feet, getting 2 yards on fourth down, it's not like crazy. If you went for a bunch of 4th and 12s, it was like it was 4th and 2. The situations were bad, but once again, you're the quarterback, you got to convert it. So he did get bailed out. The Anthony Lynn firing was because he was so good, they thought they should have been better. And it was like, oh, we should be living in a different kind of house. They were trying to keep up with the Joneses and got rid of Anthony Lynn too soon. I think I would have kept him versus getting Brandon Staley.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Harbaugh is going to do well because I'm a proponent of, the KISS method, keep it simple, stupid. Football, basketball, whatever. Basketball, if you have space, shoot the open shot. If the guy crowds you, take him off the dribble, try to get to the hoop. If you're having trouble scoring, take it to the cup, get fouled, get 2 free throws, see the ball go through the hoop. If the team's having trouble scoring,
hear that, Jason Tatum?
Someone has to do the simple thing to get people going. Like, you're not going to just, if you're struggling on offense, and like Kansas City, we talked about the game against the Raiders and the game against the Broncos. They were struggling, but they were within one possession. They didn't keep it. They didn't go like, oh, let's drop some screen passes in here. Mahomes isn't hitting the bombs. They're not falling for the play action, stuff like that. Let's keep it simple. They didn't do that, and they lost both of those games. But in the Super Bowl, they kept it simple and won. I think Jim Harbaugh is going to keep them in games. Potentially, I could see 10 wins, 10-7 in a wild card, because I think he'll run the clock. 4 minutes left. Scores 20-1 to 20. They're down 1. I could see him going slow, and getting Dicker the kicker out there to kick a 45-yard field goal and win the game 23-21.
Well, I would like to think that, like to your point about the fourth down calls and all that kind of stuff like that, I would like to think that,
thanks for the comment, Joe,
that having Jim Harbaugh might reverse 2 to 3 of those outcomes. So 2 of those games that you would have lost with Brandon Staley making dumb decisions now become wins.
Yeah, I think he gives you a better third down call.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have this expectation, I'm going for it on fourth down anyway. Or he goes for it. He does something on third down that's going to either make the other team use a timeout or the clock's going to run, or this is probably going to convert. And if it doesn't, I'm going to just pin it deep into my defense, hold them.
Right.
I'm not sure if the defense really felt that Brandon Staley, who was a defensive coach coming over from the Rams,
Hmm.
that he trusted them in these moments. And no matter how team it is, like the name on the front is more important than the name on the back. That's BS because they don't cut the name on the front if you don't make a
Right.
tackle. They cut the name on
Well,
the
well,
back.
Harbaugh comes in with the credibility, right? The 5 years before he became a 49er head coach, they were 33-47. He went 13-3 the first year, lost in the NFC title game, 64-44 overall, made it to a Super Bowl. He was 29-6 at the University of San Diego, who doesn't even give out scholarships. He took Stanford to a BCS bowl. And obviously, we see what he did with Michigan, won their first outright national title since 1948. We don't count the 1997 split titles around here. So Harbaugh has proven that not only is he a great coach as far as culture and picking everything up, but he's a fixer and he's a builder and he comes into messed up situations and he can be that person that catapults a team to a different level.
I think he's a like when we were talking about the coaches getting hired this offseason and the recent hires, you have the Sean McVay that had success. You have Michael Flores. You have your Zach Taylor's in Cincinnati. You have these young guys that got hired on late 30s, 40s. Arthur Smith is an example of a guy that got hired on just because he kind of fit that new wave mode. Well, I'm an old head. I remember what old school football looks like. It still applies. You do not have to throw the ball 50 times because everyone talks about, oh, you don't want to pay the running back. You don't want to pay the running back. But I go back to this point painfully all the time. If Atlanta runs the ball in the Super Bowl, they're going to be up 11 points. Either they're going to get the first down or they're going to, at a minimum, one more first down runs off 2 more minutes.
Right.
So something as simple as just being able to say, because the reason they even got that far down the field was they threw a screen pass to the running back because he was
Mhm.
open, because everyone thought he was going to throw it deep because he was a MVP. Devontae Adams got down there, and then Julio made the crazy catch. But even with the catch by Julio, if you pound the rock, you have an opportunity to kick a field goal to go up 11. So I think Harbaugh is going to do that. 4 minutes left. Like, listen, I could get, I could get Johnson on this corner route because they're playing him with the nickel corner or whatever, and maybe he beats him, or I can give it to Dobbins here and get 3 yards, or I go hard play action, roll Justin Herbert out, little dump off to the tight end, Hayden Hurst, and just get the like I think he'll make that play call versus the let me see how far my strong arm quarterback can throw it on 3rd and 2.
Right. And they did bring in Lad McConkey through the draft. So he has the chance to be their leading receiver this year, right off top.
Do Hunter
They,
Renfro.
they got rid of, well, I shouldn't say got rid of, they didn't resign Austin Eckler, who is now, half-assing it in Washington because, he doesn't want to be a full-time running back. He was a touchdown machine, though.
Yeah.
So what did they do? They went out and got Gus Edwards from the Baltimore Ravens. Career highs last year in yards and touchdowns, 13 touchdowns. But like I said, J.K. Dobbins, So if Gus Edwards, hopefully he can stay upright because I don't know what
So he
they
got a
have
bunch.
outside of
So
that.
he got
So
a bunch of guys that used to play for his brother.
right, and then
Hayden
but
Hurst used to play in Baltimore. So you got J.K. Dobbins. You got Gus. So you have Greg Roman was there in
Greg
Baltimore.
Roman,
So
yep,
what you have is that what they learned, whatever they learned from their dad growing up and his level of just his coaching credibility and his coach credentials,
hmm
it's definitely tabled conversations where they have conversations about what they would do if they were ever a head coach of a team, or why they should do this, why they should do that, or who they should hire. I mean, literally, the defensive coordinator in Michigan used to work in Baltimore. So
and
maybe
he
they're
brought him with
maybe
him too.
so maybe he's trying to set up this culture of Baltimore West, which I personally think I think Baltimore has the best football culture mixed in with Pittsburgh. I like Pittsburgh, Baltimore. I think that style and that culture and the way they really establish, like, listen, if you want to be the backup to this linebacker, you got to be able to do what he does. You can't just be, oh, I'm a linebacker, I'm 6'2", 247, and the starter is 6'2", 259. Like, yo, you need to get 12 more pounds on. You need to be able to take on guards on in this kind of, pulling guards. You need to be able to do the same thing that the guy ahead of you does, because what good are you to me if I'm trying to call these plays and you are limited, more like limited than the guy ahead of me. So that's why Pittsburgh always has these guys that seem to come out of nowhere. Like, no, they just literally get the same guy. Like, oh, I drafted a guy 3 years ago, nose tackle, 6'3", 330 pounds. I'm gonna get another one. So when I need to run him in the game, I don't have to switch up my play calls. Look at Baltimore's backup quarterback. Tyler Huntley was probably not going to be a backup quarterback for any other team, but they had Lamar. It was like, I can't have Lamar and then Sam Darnold as his backup. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't fit our philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that approach.
Yeah, so as an aside, I do like Kamani Vidal, out of Troy, 1,661 yards, 14 touchdowns last year. So in case JK ain't there, they might be all right. But yeah, but looking at the Raiders, here we go. Looking at Pittsburgh.
They've never been under 500, man, in 17 years. 17 years, man. That's a winning culture.
It's coming to you this year, though. It's coming to you this year. But the Raiders, Antonio Pierce got the full-time job now, 5-4 as the interim last year. He brought in Marvin Lewis as an associate head coach or assistant head coach.
And they might rock around and go 5-12 this year because I don't know if they have the quarterback play that's going to keep their star wide receiver happy. And there's a quarterback that plays out here in New Jersey that would gladly take that guy out their hands. And I think that's going to be the biggest story, because I get it. You got the interim coach and you want him, but the wins put you in a position where you couldn't draft a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
They should have just told him last year, we're going to give you a shot next year to be a head coach. Coach the way you can, get the people going. But, if you want to be here and you want to get Michael Penix Jr., you might want to get a couple less wins. I don't know how you really preach that to an NFL coach who's coaching for his job.
Miami ain't have a problem doing that.
they try to trap the ball in the boat with Tom Brady, but Brian Flores, see how quickly that went away. But my problem with the Raiders is that you probably weren't going to be able to get up to 2 to get Jaden Daniels. I understand that. You could have got to 7 to get Michael Penix if you really wanted. If rumor has it he was the guy you were kind of scouting, maybe you go up to 6. I mean, it did catch everybody off guard that Michael Penix Jr. went 8. So maybe that's not really their fault, but I didn't see them making any aggressive moves aside from, just going with the draft. And then they had Aiden O'Connell, Garoppolo's gone, whatever the case may be. But Gardner Minshew, he's a gamer. He's not, like you said, Bo Nix is a gamer. He just rides to the moment. Gardner Minshew just plays above whatever his scouting report says about him every time.
The scouting report says make him throw across the middle.
Yeah, a lot like Tyler Heineke. Tyler Heineke was one of those guys that it was feast or famine. It could be 3 touchdowns and a crazy scramble on 3rd and 12, or you get inside the red zone and you fumble the ball away diving for the first down. It's hit or miss, feast or famine. I think Minshew is in that position, and that's a tough position to be when you're dealing with the first-year head coach who could get fired. I mean, the owner's a billionaire. He can easily get rid of him, bring Belichick and Dak Prescott in next year and see what he can make work. So, as Vegas has to put on a show.
What was wild is even with Josh Jacobs last year, who came into last season as the rushing champion from the previous year, they finished 30th in rushing last year. So they have Zamir White out of Georgia, who I think is just a career backup for the most part. But I was like, the Raiders gotta. What are they gonna do? He's gone. He's gone. Their big running back move was, we're gonna get Alexander Madison from the
I mean,
Vikings.
listen, if you can make a hole, you can get like I said, Najee Harris went over 1,000 yards last year, and Warren had over 800.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can play physical enough, you can, like I said, 3.5 yards per play is a first down. Like I used to tell my son all the time when he played football or when he was younger, and he was, always trying to hit the big play because when he was playing, he's like he wanted to get the yards. I'm like, listen, if you guys get 3.5 yards per play, first down, second down, third down, that's 10.5 yards. That's the first down. You can go down the field doing that every play.
Mm-hmm.
So with the Raiders, I, I don't think their situation is bad. I think that maybe they could be in a situation where they're looking to sign one of these free agent guys that might be cut loose next year.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody on like an expiring contract, like a Dak, something like that. But maybe they want to do that because they just made that mistake with Garoppolo. Maybe they really want to develop Aiden O'Connell. I didn't see anything from Aiden O'Connell that says he's more than a big backup. I don't remember any throws. I know like anyone can throw the ball at Devontae, Adams when he's open. But that game that they beat Kansas City, he didn't have a completion in the second half. They got 2 turnovers in like 14 to 15 seconds that went for touchdowns. And then the whole second half, like he didn't make any impact play at all. In a game and then even in that same the Los Angeles game where they scored 63 points, it was just the defense just putting them in position just to score points. So like he has moxie. I don't like I said, I just didn't see it. Like I watched a lot of games. I don't know. I seem to end up watching a lot of Raider games. They were on Monday Night Football a couple of times, and I was kind of watching the for Antonio Pierce to see how it turned out. I just didn't see a situation where you looked across. If you're down 6 and you come over and it's like, all right, Aiden, get us in the end zone. It just that moment just didn't occur, and I don't think it's happening this offseason because not like they made a lot of additions.
Well,
I think the biggest thing that happened for them is the fact that Aaron Rodgers said that he wants to play with Devontae Adams again.
Well, he did. Well, he did. Aiden O'Connell. He did show that he can overcome adversity. I mean, his first game, he got sacked 6 times by one dude. What I mean? And then
how you get sacked 6 times by one dude because you holding onto the ball too damn long.
And then you got Brock Bowers. Whoever the quarterback is going to be, Brock Bowers should be their best friend. So that's a start. They still got Jacoby Myers. So I don't think the Raiders are that far off. And I wanted to believe in them until I saw one thing. And, of course, this is like Sports Reports is ordered. So petty is our favorite color. I was with the Raiders until I saw Luke Getsy was their offensive coordinator. And, and for those of you that don't know, Luke Getsy, he was the offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears the last 3 years. And I was kind of taken aback, because we already saw what he can or can't do with a young quarterback. Now, granted, Justin Fields is a little different because he brings the legs, to the game. So maybe he works better with traditional quarterbacks. They did bring back Patrick Graham, the defensive coordinator. He had the Raiders playing as a top 5 defense going towards the end of the season, as you talked about the game against Kansas City. So the Raiders definitely have upside.
Christian Wilkins.
Christian Wilkins is going to free up Max Crosby to be even more of a menace, and
they're going to be New England and Nevada. They're going to be New England and Nevada. They're going to have this great defense that's going to hold people to 13, 14 points. And if they start Aiden O'Connell, then they're just hoping that the defense can keep teams.
Well, you remember that one year? I think it was 2 years ago where Denver had this wild stat where it was like if they had just averaged 19 points a game,
Yeah, that was
they,
the
that
Hackett
might
year.
that might be
Yeah,
the Raiders this year. You know what I mean? Like if y'all can
yeah,
average 19 points a game, y'all might
yeah.
win 9 games.
But that's the thing. The reason that stat is in our memory banks is because they didn't average those points. Like no one brings that up with you. No one brings up like when the Ravens only allowed 16 points back in 2001 or whatever the years when they won a Super Bowl because they were beating the hell out of people. No one was like, "Wow, that's so impressive." It's
Right.
impressive when you're a team that's a sub 500 team and the people are like, yo, they only give up 16 and a half points a game. Then it's a conversation. That was the Hackett year because they didn't have an offensive identity that matched, like that came from the coach. He literally had to hire another guy.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the Raiders are going to do. I personally, because I don't know what the price tag is for Gardner Minshew. I can't imagine it's more than $16 million or $20 million, if that. I think guys like Case Keenum are getting like 17 or $18 million to be backups. So I can't imagine. Aiden O'Connell, not a first round pick, so he's not getting any
Two
big money
years,
yet.
25 million.
So yeah, about 12.5 million bucks. I think, did I nail that? Yeah, I probably did. Man, I'm so good at this. Uh, so you're not really hurting yourself by starting Gardner Minshew, and you're not really hurting the potential franchise second year quarterback because he's not that. So if they want to go out there and just win games and compete in the AFC West, start Gardner Minshew. They still probably end up third,
Mhm.
but it'll be like that building block season. It'll be the season that people think the Chargers are going to have. I think the Chargers are going to have a better season than 9-8. I think 10-7 is realistic because, like I said, I think they're going to go out and win games 23-21. I think the Raiders are going to lose games 20-17.
Yeah, and I mean, and to the point, they finished seventh in points per game given up last year. So I mean, Max Crosby almost won Defensive Player of the Year. So Tyree Wilson is also going to benefit from the Christian Wilkins addition as well. But of course, you can't talk about the AFC West unless you talk about the champs. And
Yeah,
when
they're
it
going to be
comes,
good. And the show's over. No, I'm joking.
and when, and when you
They're going to be good.
and when you when you what is it when you come for you aim at the king, you best not miss.
That miss, yeah.
You know what I mean? So this is where we are, right? Like Kansas City, trying to become the first team in NFL history to win 3 consecutive Super Bowls. You
Not
know,
championships. Championships been done before they were called Super Bowls.
yeah,
Just
this is the ninth. Yeah, this is the ninth time that a team has won back to back. But now they can put that element on top. And I do not want to be anywhere around anybody with a Tom Brady jersey if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl this year. You know what I mean? I'm not here for it. You know what
like
I
I
mean?
said, we've had this conversation before. Patrick Mahomes got to win. He got to win 8. He has to win 8 because if he wins 6, the argument will be, well, Tom Brady beat him for 2
well,
by winning the AFC Championship game and then beating him in the Super Bowl. So he has to win 8.
the problem is that when you look at this, right, you say to yourself, last year was the year that people were supposed to get Kansas City. Like MVS probably just dropped another pass. Like they didn't even play Kadarius Toney,
The
the
one
last stretch
against
of the
Philly
season.
was tough. I think we were watching that game, right? I think we were watching it live because you were ahead of me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we watched it. I think it was Monday night. It
The
was a
Monday
Monday
night
night
game.
football
Yeah,
game.
yeah, yeah.
And you saw it and was like, "Whoa, wait till you see it." And I was like, "What?" And then I seen it. I was like, but then in the AFC Championship game, he goes to him. It must be something. It must be like Tom Brady because they like Julian Edelman says. It's granted they can talk about it because they won the Super Bowl, but he was like, at no point when they're on the sideline thinking they were going to lose the Super Bowl because they had time. I'm like, yeah, that sounds cute now because you won, but there's no way in the hell you were thinking that realistically. You probably thought it when you got to 28-12 and you were getting the ball back, you were like, you know what, we might be able to do this. But you're not thinking at 28-3 and Atlanta has the ball. Like that's not what's going through your head at
Right.
any point. But when you get the ball field down 28-12 with 8 minutes left, you're thinking like, okay, we can string this together. That makes more sense. Some about with Mahomes, it just I think I brought this up to you in a conversation. They they measured his heart rate like during like pressure situations and games, and his heart rate is lower when he's on the field in pressure situations versus being on the sideline. So on the sideline, he's like physically
Real
frantic.
antsy. Yeah.
He might not show it, but like internally, he's frantic. But on the field in those moments, it's like it doesn't bother him. So I've watched, he's because he's been in so many big games. I watched quarterback. I watched that series, and then obviously it came out when um after the Super Bowl. So you saw like I knew that they won the game, but having the camera on him and the way he was talking and the way he interacts with the coach in these pressure situations, like in the Super Bowl and things like that. Like let's think about the Houston game. They were down 24-0 in the first half and winning a halftime up 28-24
Right. Who
at
does
home in the
that?
playoffs. Like that happens in video games. That doesn't happen in real life. And then he did it again and again and again. People like kind of forget in that first Super Bowl with the 49ers, they were down 20-10. He had just thrown a pick and won that game 31-20. They got the ball back with he threw the pick with like 9 minutes left in the game, and they scored three more touchdowns. Granted, one was a long Damien Williams one, but still, it was like they scored three more touchdowns after he threw a pick. So
Right.
it's just most guys shut down when that happens, and just because of that, honestly, it doesn't really even matter who's on the team. Long as those guys have above average NFL talent, I think he's the force multiplier that's going to make it better. Xavier Worthy might not be great at catching the ball, and then we say he has to drop to Texas. But I mean, if you're beating guys and he gets you deep, just hold on to the ball
Well,
once or twice.
like that's the thing. Buffalo done fucked up again. They made the trade that facilitated Patrick Mahomes being able to go to the Chiefs. They gave him Xavier Worthy, their next Tyreek Hill. And then, oh, by the way, they went and got Hollywood Brown too for the other side. So deep balls galore flying all over Arrowhead. But like I was gonna say last year, they didn't even play Kadarius Toney down the stretch. Skylar Moore was out with an injury, and both of them were very vital to the Super Bowl win against Philadelphia. So if you didn't get the Chiefs last year,
And then
I
he
don't know
ran the
when.
same play with McCall Hartman to
Yeah,
win the Super
to
Bowl.
win the Super Bowl, I don't know when you're going to get them. But this is the thing, and I agree with you, Q. You know what I mean? But that still doesn't. But Coleman is better than Worthy, but Mahomes is better than Allen.
Yeah,
You know what I
see,
mean?
Coleman's probably better for Josh Allen because Rasheed Rice can do. Yeah, it's all just hype, son. It's all hype and speculation. But if he gets too far, but if
Balls
he
deep. How you like that?
yeah, but if he gets open and he catches a few of them, like look at MVS, like he had to drop against Philly. But if we look at the AFC Championship game, he went right back to him. McCall Hartman went to the Jets, had a bad run. They brought him right back, gave
In
him a
the
different
same
number.
season.
In the same season, brought him right back, and he catches the game winning touchdown in the Super Bowl. So Mahomes just does. I don't know how much film he watches, and I don't know like how his brain works. I don't know if him and Andy like sit and have just conversations about football. I don't know if him and Kelsey, like I don't know how much they communicate, but I think there was a play. I don't know if it was this season on quarterback, another documentary. He they Kelsey caught a touchdown. It was like maybe like a 12, 13-yard touchdown inside the red zone, but he threw it like the back of the end zone. And Kelsey said, "How'd you know I was going to do that?" He's like, "I didn't. I just threw it."
Yeah.
Like he just stopped his route and turned around. Like it wasn't like a real route. Like he just was like, you know what? I think I can get open if I just turn around. And he said when he turned around, the ball was on him. He's like, "How'd you know I was going to do that?" He's like, "I know it just looked like something you would do." But so it's like that's the thing is like that kind of connection. And he looks for other guys in those type moments. We talked about
Right.
Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers not throwing the ball to anybody else in that NFC Championship game against the 49ers cost him the game because I think Christian Wilkins dropped one early. The other tight end, Josiah DeGora, something like that, he dropped like an open pass, and he just kept going to Jones and Tanyan after that. Like he just loses faith in guys. He's a gamer. Like he wants to make plays, but he doesn't know how to give people that second chance.
Mhm.
Because the way MVS was dropping passes, and I think Tony probably would have got more run if he probably didn't piss off the coaches. I imagine that like all that Instagram stuff he was talking about and just kind of going to the net probably pissed the coaches off. But I saw a report that they're working him out as running back. I'm like, this dude getting a well blocked screen pass, partially good. Like it don't even have to be a great.
Well, he
It just
well, he might be playing some running back this year.
that's what I'm saying. So just
You
like like a halfway decently blocked screen pass could go to the house.
know what I'm saying? So
One guy
now
can miss a
so
block
so so,
completely.
so Xavier Worthy is going to be the Tyreek Hill. I guess that makes Kadarius Tony the Percy Harvin. But hey, Kansas City,
That's
no
perfect.
no
That
no
might be
more
a perfect role for him.
no more drama, right? Chris Jones, 5 years, 160. He's back. Drew Tranquil back. Trent McDuffie is obviously back, but they did lose Legarius Sneed. Do you think that hurts them, or you think their defense is good enough to overcome
It
such a big
seems
loss?
like their defense is kind of cranking out a factory of quality man to man corners. They seem to figure it out. I like their linebacker play between Bolton and
Yeah, they,
Tranquil. I just like their playmaking ability. And then we saw in the Super Bowl, we talked about Chris Jones just blowing up plays. There was guys eating up two blocks, which normally is Jones's job, but they were beating their guy off the snap as well. So it's like smart offensive line was like, well, I gotta hope that this guy can hold up Jones because this other guy's getting through. So they were sliding protections to different guys, and that's how Jones got through to break up the play where Ayuk would have been wide open for the touchdown because
Mhm.
the whole defensive front was just constantly just getting through. Um, Mahomes' money is like his contract being that it's 10 years. I guess just my rudimentary knowledge of the salary cap. What they can do is just keep reworking it to where you pay him like a big salary roster bonus, and then you move some other money to a latter year that frees up money to pay like a guy like Kelsey. So if they wanted to give
Mhm.
Kelsey 17 million, they could move 8 or 10 million of his signing bonus to year 7 of the contract,
Mhm.
pay him a different signing bonus this year, some crazy like that, and then wiggle some other people into those spaces where he's now vacated this money. Um, but he's getting a lot of the money up front. Just towards the end of this deal is going to be like $20 million a year because he's getting so much of it up in these first few years. But they're just playing salary cap roulette.
Yeah. So Kansas City obviously has a hold on this division, 30-5 Patrick Mahomes record against the AFC West. Do you think that Kansas City is going to finish with the best record in the league?
Uh, Ironically, I said we talked about Miami. The way Miami's schedule is set up, 12-5 is realistic because they play so many games in good weather or domes. And if you don't have the defensive back horses to keep up with what they do, they can win 12 or 13 games.
Yeah,
I
so
can see Kansas City winning about the same, but I think they would be probably more focused on winning the division.
could Kansas City, here's a question for you. If somebody told you that Kansas City was going to start 0-2, what would you say to them in response?
That's likely because they got Baltimore and Cincinnati back to back,
Both at home, though.
both at home, but they're still
Mhm.
tough opponents. Baltimore's you could call it a revenge game. I personally think it should have been Houston and Kansas City. I think that would have been a great week one matchup because they play Houston later in the year. I think that would have been a better week one matchup because you got the young team that everyone is kind of like the young darlings versus the old guard
What Kansas City?
versus.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, versus this team that they just played in the AFC Championship game. I feel like it's like a cheap setup versus an innovative one. I think the more innovative one would have been a better piece.
So you remember when I was talking about how Buffalo had the SEC schedule?
Correct.
Kansas City got the right schedule. So, like you said, Baltimore and Cincinnati to start out. Then they go to Atlanta. They
That's
go
a
to
win.
they go to LA to play the Chargers, which is basically a neutral site game. They play the Saints at home on Monday Night Football. Bye week, come off the bye at San Francisco. So if you're going to play San Francisco, play them after your bye week, right? Then they go to Vegas. They get Tampa and Denver at home. They go to Buffalo. So normally this is the part of the schedule where you're like, they go to Buffalo. Who they got after that? They go to Carolina. Then they got the Raiders at home, Chargers at home, at Cleveland, and then they close with Houston, at Pittsburgh, and at Denver. That is a very manageable schedule as far as just you got a tough team, but then your next tough game isn't until like 3 weeks later, or whatever the case may be.
All right, but let's break that down though real quick. All
United States, and I got the United States winning rugby too. Friend of the show.
right, so we got first game, then it's a 10-day break, 7 days, 7 days, 8 days, 13 days, 7 days, 7 days, 6 days, 7 days, 7 days, 5 days, another 10 days, 7 days, 6 days, 4 days. They play a game against Houston on December 21st,
Mm-hmm.
first, and then they play at Pittsburgh on
On
Christmas Day.
Christmas, yeah.
And then they finish January 5th against the so their week to week routine is
Mm-hmm.
gonna be like it's gonna be unlike any other team in the league. They're gonna
Mm-hmm.
play, I believe they're gonna play a game on 5 or 6 of the 7 days of the week.
Yeah, they got Thursday, Sunday, Monday, Friday, and Wednesday. So at least five.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, but if anybody can do it, they can. Then they did lose Willie Gay to New Orleans. You know, I just don't see. So right now, as we sit here, it's only July 29th. And,
July.
and oh, by the way, people,
We got
by the
football this
by the
week.
way, people, don't forget Thursday night football is back. We got the Chicago Bears and the Houston Texans in the Hall of Fame game. But yeah, like Kansas City, I just think that out in the AFC, just looking at it on today, outside of Baltimore, I don't really see the team that challenges them. Like I know that I said I think Houston could give them a good run for their money, but I probably wouldn't pick Houston to win that game. I just think Houston might match up with them okay. But Baltimore is like the one team. So I'm excited for week one. I said I want to see how the season starts. And to put the bow on it, I don't see Kansas City any worse than 12-5. I
Yeah. I
see.
think I think they're gonna have a good year. I Every other team that you would pick to beat them in the AFC has someone on a hot seat and someone ready to push a button.
Right.
Baltimore, not necessarily anybody on a hot seat, but I think the pressure for Lamar and John Harbaugh, is it going to be a question where if they don't get it over the hump this year, do they both enter next year on the hot seat, or do they even make it through the offseason? I know you don't really fire Harbaugh. They're going to have a good year. But is it that same thing? Like, I don't believe when you have a good team, like you got to make a change just for the sake of change. Because I
Mhm.
think when you have good coaches and good players, you keep them together. And your ceiling is your ceiling. You can't expect to have a higher ceiling with some people you have no idea if they can even reach the plateau that your guy you're thinking about firing can get you.
Right.
Buffalo coach going to be on the hot seat already. Cincinnati quarterbacks on the hot seat. Team on a hot seat because they're gonna have to pace one of these guys, their wide
What
receivers.
if what if Miami doesn't win a playoff game this year? Is that a hot seat situation?
Uh,
Because I know you already got Robert Salo on the hot seat.
I think Robert Sala's on a hot seat because I think he's putting himself there. I think he's put himself in a pressure cooker. I think he is allowing the New York media hype and expectation to kind of mold his attitude because he used to be real optimistic and happy and excited on the sideline for San Francisco. He's been disgruntled the entire time he's been the head coach in New Jersey. Like I don't think I've ever seen him. Maybe a couple of times where they pulled off like a win he didn't think they would get, but
Hey
it
man,
just
that
seems like
East Coast wind be biting, man.
every interaction with the media seems that I've personally seen, like even the one with Aaron Rodgers this year with missing the training camp. He could come out there and be like, listen, Aaron Rodgers had something that he had planned. He notified us. We're going to handle all internally. I know you guys all have a lot of questions, but I'm not going to really get that much more information. We handle things internally. So Aaron's aware. The ownership is aware. Leadership is aware. So, like that's all we really need to say about that. Next question. And
Yeah,
but he kind of took it like he felt like it was a burden that they're asking him this question. Like you have Aaron Rodgers on your team and you have all these heavy expectations. But
yeah,
Miami, I don't think I think Mike McNair I think he's likable. And I think Tua and those athletes fit their system. So if you were to fire him, you'd have to figure out like, is the next guy gonna be a coordinator that's going to fit out our type of players?
right. So I'm gonna go with Kansas City at 12-5. I'm gonna pick the Chargers 9-8. I'm gonna go 7-10 for the Raiders, and I'm gonna go 4-13 for the Broncos.
I like 4-13. I like 6-11 for the Raiders just because I don't know what their quarterback play is going to look like. And like I said, I don't know if their best offensive player is going to be there post trade deadline. I can see that kind of firing up. Kansas City 12-5. That seems realistic. I got 10-7 for the Chargers. I just think that Harbaugh is going to be able to get them to 10 wins. So 9-8, 10 wins. Like I said, it's the difference between going for it on 4th and 2, missing out, and then the other team kicks the game in the field goal versus you converting on 3rd down and just running the clock out. I think that's going to be the difference where we're going to get 10 wins. I think the 7 losses are going to come when they play a team that has some real firepower, and Khalil Mack is out that day, or Derwin James is out that day, or Bosa's out for a couple of games, because that's inevitable. Like I
Mhm.
said, they're back. Their replacement players aren't on par with them because they're all pros, but
Right,
they're often injured as well. So I think it's going to be a couple of games where they're going to go in shorthanded,
right.
and that's gonna cost. I think that's going to cost them a couple of games there.
Yeah, as far as Cleveland goes, we'll get into the AFC North next week. But Cleveland, for me, I'll just say right now, is an enigma. Deshaun Watson will have to regain form.
Does
You know,
Deshaun Watson have whatever marker Fultz got? Because that's what it seems like.
I don't know, but
Because he was a
obviously,
star in Houston, and he was a dud. And he probably played about what 14 games. We'll get into it, but like I can't like he just doesn't look the same. He doesn't look like the same threat.
right. And like Nick Chubb is not practicing. He's not back at practice yet after that injury he had last year. So, hopefully we do get to see him on the field this year. They did pick up Deontay Foreman to go along with Jerome Ford. So they'll still be able to run the ball. They picked up Jerry Judy. Amari Cooper just, he's getting paid again. So, Cleveland has.
Don't give up too much
No,
information.
no, I'm not. I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not. I'm not.
yeah.
But I want to answer. I want to answer the question.
Yeah,
They asked us the question. I want to answer it. So
I got it. I got you.
like,
I got you.
so Cleveland has the roster to make a run, and I like Kevin Stefanski. He was my coach of the year last year, but that division, man, that division, like it's just tough. Like the last place team in that, it's like the NBA, right? We talk about, the 8th seed in the West could be the 3rd seed in the East. The last team in the AFC North could win other divisions. So,
Yeah,
I'm interested to see Cleveland. Like the one thing that, I will knock Cleveland on, of course, is when you look at their road numbers on defense last year versus their home numbers, it will remind you of how Dak Prescott looked at home versus how he looked on the road.
Correct.
So from that standpoint. But on that note, I'm saying it is about that time. We got to wrap it up. So pause. Just gotta make sure I cover my bases here. But like, review, subscribe. Thursday we got football back. We will be here. We will be live. We will be talking about the NFC West. San Francisco Rams, anyone? We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But he is Mr. Logical. Do not bring feelings to a fact fight.
Don't do it.
I am going left so much you thought I was southpaw. But to Residente's point, still straight. Had to say it. But we'll be back. We love you. Thanks for the support. Good night, Grandma. Peace.